Hi guys, I'm Shmi and welcome to the French Alps. Now normally one would of course be here to go skiing, but we're here to talk about the Ferrari California T. Now this is perhaps not the most usual car to be found in this kind of environment with snow and ski lifts and mountains and everybody having a lot of fun skiing. But the reason we're here is because we're off on the road to Geneva. We have been driving in the Ferrari California very generously from Ferrari North Europe down from London, heading towards Geneva for the 2016 motor show. So we thought we'd come via the Alps to check out some nice roads. Fortunately the weather is on our side, so we're running on the normal Pirelli P0 tyres. Now of course that meant I had to check the route, make sure the weather was going to be manageable for us. Unfortunately it's about 7 or 8 degrees Celsius here today, so that means it is fine and it is dry, so the top is down. Now, let's start from the top. The California T, why is this the right car for this trip? Well, it is, of course, a GT car. We are basically spending most of this trip driving on the motorways, a little bit, of course, on the sort of twisty, fun roads. It's got a decent amount of storage in the boot, so it's basically perfect for our sort of 7 or 8 day adventure, heading down to Geneva to check out everything being launched at the motor show. So yesterday's part of the trip, we were driving down from London, crossing the Eurotunnel down into France. Today, we've continued on the motorway. I haven't covered that journey because, let's face it, it's motorway, not the most exciting in the world, but we're going to head now over towards some twisty roads where I think it's going to be quite a lot of fun, or I'm certainly hoping so. But firstly, let's talk California T, of course. It's a front mid-engine, 3.9 litre twin-turbo V8, 560 CV, or horsepower, 755 Newton meters of torque. It has a folding aluminium roof, which of course comes down into the rear. It's a 2+2 configuration. You can see we've got all of the luggage and things, well, some luggage here, camera gear, bits and bobs. You can just about squeeze people in the back. Not the most space in the world, but you can shuffle the seats forwards. If I come round and show you in the rear, I'll unlock the car and pop the boot, where of course the lid, well, the roof is currently folded in here, but you can see there's also generous space underneath that actually goes all the way back through as well, so you can fit a decent amount of stuff in the back of the California T. So we're doing absolutely fine on our luggage for this trip, and I'll show you the roof mechanism a little bit further on. Close the boot and then it sort of soft closes down. Let's swing around and have a quick look at the interior, because this car is of course very, very generously spec'd. Standard California T, £155,000. Spec of this car, £207,000. So we've got lots of upon request sort of components, like the Daytona seats with the sort of Alcantara and leather with the red stitching, the Ferrari embroideries. We've got all the carbon fibre options, the inlays, the LED driving zone with the shift lights up here at the top. Apple Carplay on the navigation system. I'll run over the full spec, but it's certainly very, very nice inside. The semi-aniline leather looking very nice, and this sort of configuration also working very well. Around the outside, we've got the Rosso Corsa Ferrari paintwork, of course, with the Scuderia shields on the side. The two-tone Nero, so the roof of this car is actually black, which matches in with the wheels that the car has. And on that very topic, we've got titanium bolts, and we've got the carbon fibre caps here, which are pretty nice too, with the yellow calipers that will carry through with the yellow logos and the yellow rev counter. But we'll look at that in a little bit more detail slightly further on. I think actually, let me come and show you the engine bay, because, well, it's a Ferrari, isn't it? And the engine bay is always quite special. So you release that there. Come back round to the front, if I can find the catch. Yes, nice and easy. Isn't that very nice? 3.9 litre twin turbo V8. Obviously power significantly up from the original California. But I'll talk more about some of the differences between the California and California T when I am out on the road. And for that, of course, drop that down and click it in place. I'm going to start this car up. So let's hear how it sounds, because obviously turbochargers do take away from the naturally aspirated sound, but nonetheless, this doesn't sound bad. So ignition on, start button here on the steering wheel, usual Ferrari steering wheel, Manettino, slightly fewer options than you'll see in the other models, the FF or now the GTC4 Lusso, of course, that we're going to see when we get down to Geneva, but we've still got bumpy road, the lights and wipers and the indicators up here. Right, let's get this started. Not too bad, hey? Very, very rumbly, and as you can see, we are in the Alps. Well, actually, I didn't really need to show you that. You can kind of tell that already. So we're going to set off now. Well, I'm going to set off and take this car for a ride, little drive. I'll probably put the roof up for the moment because, of course, it's going to be a little bit windy otherwise. In fact, maybe I'll do that now. I'll show you an interior view of the roof going up above us. So that is controlled via this switch here. Takes 14 seconds for the retractable hardtop to do its thing. You can see it opens up the rear deck. The panels come over, drop down in place, and then the rear glass panel drops down behind that. 14 seconds for a hardtop to convert. It's a pretty impressive achievement actually from the RHT retractable hardtop. Just come through and have a look at sort of how the lines of the car work with the roof up, with the Rosso and Nero combination. So yes, initially it's a pretty good car for this trip, but let's now jump in again and go for this drive, and I'll talk more about how it handles. This is some fairly spectacular scenery to get us started then. We're crossing it through the French Alps in a car that, well, like I said, has been pretty perfect for this trip overall so far, but this is where it's going to be a sort of a bit of a test as we get to doing something a little bit more exciting. So typically on the main roads, been driving it in automatic, 7-speed double clutch gearbox as well, of course, and a gearbox that actually changes gear exceptionally quickly and very, very smoothly. It has to be commended for that. And actually, while I'm just sort of initially driving in some of these really, really tight, twisty corners, the steering in sort of typical Ferrari fashion is very, very sharp, very direct, very pointy, and sort of exactly what you want. And one of the sort of contrasts is you might think that sort of makes this car less user-friendly as a GT car out on the sort of motorways, but it doesn't seem to. It seems to sort of hold its line, of course, and be pretty relaxing in that environment, which is helped by everything, sort of like the seats and general comfort of the car and the handling and suspension setup. This car itself has a new setup versus the original California. In fact, there are actually quite a few changes behind the scenes. Obviously, the turbocharged engine is the big one, but the gear ratios are a little bit longer, so it has a higher top speed, 316 kilometers an hour, 196 miles per hour. Performance figures while I'm on the topic: 0 to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, is 3.6 seconds. 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, 124 miles per hour is 11.5 seconds. So there's a lot of power on tap. Of course, 560 horsepower, you'd expect nothing else. So the suspension setup that's changed is very, very good. The car is very accurate. It comes from lessons Ferrari learnt making the F12 Berlinetta, which of course came out after the original California. For this new model. Well, inside, I guess there are a couple more options and new sort of features and design things you can add, but the driving, hopefully I'm going to get to experience opening it up slightly more in a moment when I turn it up from comfort mode on the Manatino to sport. Now, of course, that's going to stiffen everything, and ride is immediately noticeably stiffer. Obviously, that handling setup, you can probably hear the sort of rumbles of the road surface, which is not the best where we are right now. The ride stiffens itself up, which is obviously going to give us a more direct and sort of exciting drive, especially on these kind of roads. If, however, you did then want to take it back to the comfort sort of spec, you have the bumpy road button on the steering wheel, which will do exactly that. I don't, though. I want to enjoy the drive right now, so we'll take it out of bumpy road. I will also press the auto button down here to take it onto the manual paddles, because I want to be able to enjoy these lovely carbon fibre paddles, which are sort of consistent between Ferraris, and always very good. Fixed position paddles behind the steering wheel. I just need to get past the car in front of me so that I can actually enjoy it. So using the paddles, that's where you get to really enjoy this. And even though it's a turbocharged engine, which of course mutes the sound a little bit, it always will, that's just the way these things work, it does give you that extra power and extra excitement. The power just keeps on delivering. The red line, up to 7,500 in this car, doesn't feel particularly short, and when you do upshift right at the red line, you get a really quite nice sort of noise, crackly kind of poppy noise bouncing off the back of it, and when you've got the roof down, that sounds even better. But like I said, I'm not going to drive with that down for the moment. But how can you complain? This car is really nicely set up to come out to these kind of roads for the sort of front-engined setup that it is, a GT car, and then you go on the motorways and it's equally at home there, very quiet, very comfortable, very easy. So it's a really, really nice balance, which is of course what it's supposed to be, and it takes some more of the sporty characteristics and brings them into the T version, of course, in a way that I think works pretty well. And it's a Ferrari. It's a very nice car to be driving. Let's try and get it up to the line. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. it would probably be a little bit unfair not to complain about something. So Ferrari, and this is the same on my FF, you've got pit speed. Cruise control is called pit speed. Now typically pit speed means racing, and in racing, in the pits, your pit speed actually limits you. It's not setting the cruise to maintain, it's setting the maximum speed at which you can drive. So something's got a little bit funny with the naming system here. While driving on this road, you can certainly feel the weight of the car. Obviously there's a lot of top weight, especially with the roof belt right now. It may be an aluminium roof, so it is pretty light. It's a lot lighter than it would be, obviously, with more traditional materials. But that doesn't sort of do enough to detract from the nice experience that comes from the steering, because it is very, very sharp, very pointy. And I'm driving on some roads here with some spectacularly tight corners, you know, first gear corners. And the steering's very light, very easy, straight round, just how it should be. And then you get to pull away, and the shift feel is very nice too, very aggressive as you get up towards the top end of the red line, but a little bit more relaxed down towards the bottom. So it's a very nicely set up car, especially for this kind of purpose. We are basically using the California T on this tour for, I think, pretty much exactly what it's built for, what it's designed for. So it's doing a pretty good job for us. No questions then, it's a lot of fun to drive, but let's have a quick sound check from the outside so we can hear what that turbocharged engine sounds like out here. Very much the distinctive V8 sound, and it sounds pretty good actually. Louder than I think you might expect from the outside, and that's what you notice when you're driving it roof down. On which topic, let's also do a demonstration of the roof mechanism from the outside so you can see exactly what's going on here. Windows down. The middle panel lifts up onto the top. The rear boot opens up. Down goes the roof. Windows come up. Closes up. 14 seconds start to finish. And there you have the California roof open. Thank you very much for the demonstration. So let's take a look around then at some of the other things we show you the California T. So it's got some new sort of work done to the underside, I think through the front mostly, to sort of aid with downforce, obviously with the increased power, to make sure everything works very well. I mean, on that note, around the front here we've got the sort of very nice looking grille with the sort of bright finish with the Ferrari badge bang there in the centre. We've got all the cameras, front and rear parking cameras to help us out. A slightly new design obviously to the front, rather than the single sort of vent on the California. We've got the twin outlets coming back out through the bonnet there. So let's jump in and talk a little bit more about what we've got going on in here, so I can show you around. On the dashboard itself, you've got the central rev counter. Close that up. Towards the left screen, left side, you've got the screen that controls through these buttons down here on the right. Slightly off that the screen on the left is controlled from the right, but of course the car is designed primarily as a left-hand drive car, where that would be over to the left-hand side, so that makes more sense. Then you've got the analog speedometer over on the right-hand side, as well as a digital speedometer down here on the display. If we just press main, then we come here, we've got the setup, trip, status, VDA. Let's go down to status. You've got your usual sort of gauges. Back to main, setup, all the settings and stuff. Trip, you get your trip information. VDA, just quickly look at that, the vehicle dynamics information that you can see there. So that's all controlled with this, with the pit speed I was talking about there, the light control down here too. Mirror control on the door, next to the boots and fuel cap releases. All the materials around here are very nice, so you know, this sort of grab handle on the door is wonderful. The carbon fibre piece through the centre with the launch control, automatic and reverse buttons, also very nice. Window switches, because you have the two-part windows, you have obviously the main part of the window, but you also have that smaller part at the back, which works with the second press. One press for the main window down, and then another press to put that back window down. All works very cleanly and easily. Looking around, glove box, decent sized glove box. Of course, we're on a road trip. We've got all our documents and high-vis jackets and the like in there. Nav system. So this is pretty clever. Obviously, you've got Apple Carplay. I can't demonstrate that right now because I don't have an Apple device. I use Sony Android devices. Apple Carplay, though, would sort of bring an extension of your phone screen into this new touchscreen. Larger display than the previous model had in here. So you would have your messages, your Apple Maps, everything else would all be in here. Obviously, you also have your usual media, navigation, phone, everything else you'd expect to have in a sort of new infotainment system, with a pretty good speaker setup too. And then all the climate control settings right underneath that. So generally speaking here, very nice place to be. The one other thing to show you is this little magic piece up here, which is a display unit that you can cycle through a whole series of different displays, which I think is pretty cool, and you can press and hold it and turn it off, and press and hold it and turn it back on. Magic. Which is just a bit of fun, although I would like to be able to see more of this stuff at once. So I wish you could have like a display with the time, the temperature and everything else on it. That doesn't seem to be an option. So yeah, what else can I show you? We've got an armrest full of our junk and food and sweets and stuff, but that's where you plug in your bits and pieces, cup holder, the roof switch. Let's take a quick look at this, which is the options list. Now I'm going to whistle stop down here. We've got Magnaride suspension, all the cosmetic parts I've talked about, Daytona seats, full electric seats. Other things that stand out, we've got the advanced front lighting system headlights, Apple CarPlay, the parking camera set. Now that does come in at £4,000, which is a very steep option. The 20-inch black painted wheels, the premium hi-fi, and a couple of extra options. So what do we have? The Cavallino stitching on the rear bench. That's really nice, the Ferrari badge on the rear bench. Very, very cool. I like that a lot because obviously you see it in the rear view mirror when you're driving, which is just a nice thing to look at. Another thing I like is this carbon fibre piece in the centre with the Ferrari badge up here. So, it's a very nice car, there's no question about that. Let me put the passenger window down. Just hear the blips from the inside. See with the shift lights. Yeah, very, very cool. So, shut her off. Oh, actually, just after that, I wanted to put the window down. I did a bad job of that. Ignition on, window down, take the key out. So this is not necessarily the world's most appropriate car for this kind of wintry weather, but it's done a wonderful job and doing a wonderful job of this journey, our road to the Geneva Motor Show, where we've had obviously lots of motorways to be driving on. We've got some of these twisty roads to be driving where the steering, it's very, very pointy on turn in. It turns in exceptionally quickly. I mean, as Ferraris do, direct, to the point, very comfortable. Does the job absolutely awesomely. I mean, yeah, I'm actually quite impressed. I thought, you know, the baby Ferrari model might not offer quite as much as it actually turns out that it does. So we do, of course, have another day driving with the car. Yesterday down the motorways. Tomorrow we're going to be meandering back through the Alps and making our way ultimately towards Geneva, so there'll be a little bit more feedback to come. But initial impressions, pretty good. For now though, we're going to jump back in the car, we're going to head off towards our hotel stop for tonight. But thank you very much for watching, hope you've enjoyed that sort of look and first impressions with Ferrari's California T. That's it for now though, I will catch up with you again very soon. Cheers! Okay, so here we go, P1 time. Got the lift system up already, that's going to make it easy to get. If Porsche offered me a GT3 RS, I would not take a second to think about buying one. Let's jump in.